Evelyn was wounded and desperately begging for help, unaware that her savior was connected to her father's killer. Jonathan Reed, cold-blooded Joe, believed their old debts should be paid in blood. But Silas Crow, having fled his past, made a decision that would forever change their fates. Just look at the shocking twist this drama took, and why justice ultimately prevailed. To learn the whole truth and see how this story of betrayal and redemption ends, watch until the end. In the finale, an unexpected conclusion awaits you that will both shock and teach you wisdom. Subscribe and like. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the main street of Red Creek into a boiling mash of mud. The air was heavy, saturated with the smell of dust, sweat, and horse manure. The only thing moving in that scorching silence was a young girl crawling through the mud. Her dress, once bright and clean, was now stained with a brown muck, and tears mixed with blood flowed down her face from a deep wound on her temple. It was Evelyn. Her face expressed not just fear, but complete despair, as if her soul had already left her body. She was crawling towards the saloon, the last bastion of civilization in this godforsaken place. "Help, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her hand, outstretched in supplication, froze in the air when she saw him. The cowboy. He was slowly walking along the wooden boardwalk, his silhouette standing out against the shimmering heat haze. A wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow over his face, hiding his eyes. 2 pistols were tucked into his belt. His steps were unhurried and confident, as if each one was measured. He was her last hope. His name was Silas Crow. He was known in the area as a loner, a former bounty hunter who had settled in Red Creek to escape his past. He seemed the embodiment of the Wild West, strong, silent, and, it was believed, fair. He didn't rush to help, didn't run. He just walked slowly, and Evelyn, seeing him approach, felt a sense of relief. Finally, she would be saved. Silas approached her, paying no mind to the onlookers who had already gathered at the saloon. He knelt on one knee, his leather gloves covered in dust. He carefully examined the wound on her temple, then looked into her fear-filled eyes. "What happened, miss?" His voice was husky, like dry grass rustling in the wind. Evelyn, gasping from pain and relief, began to tell her story. Her words were disjointed, punctuated by sobs. "Bandits, 3 of them. They attacked our stagecoach, killed my father, took everything. They said they would come back for me." She fell silent, her gaze falling on his pistols. "Please, save me. They're somewhere nearby. They're hunting me." Silas nodded silently. He took off his canteen.
"I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, so you will help me in motivation to make such great stories for you, and I will see that you like them. Enjoy watching, everyone."
And gave her some water. Evelyn took a few sips, and her trembling body calmed a little. She trusted him. She was ready to give him everything just to survive. Silas lifted her into his arms, his movements quick and precise. In that moment, as his arms held her, she felt safe. Relief filled her to the brim. The world that had just been cruel and merciless suddenly became hopeful. "Don't worry, miss," Silas said, not looking at her. "I'll take care of you. No one will touch you again." He walked confidently towards the sheriff, intending to hand her over to the safe hands of the law. Evelyn clung to his chest, feeling peace for the first time in many hours. She didn't know that she was being followed not by 3 bandits, but by one. And he was already here. Silas stopped. His body tensed, and he slowly lowered Evelyn to the ground. She didn't understand what was happening until she heard a whisper behind her. "You thought you got away, Crow." The voice was low and menacing, and its owner stood so close that Evelyn felt cold steel at her throat. She froze, her relief instantly replaced by shock. Silas, her savior, didn't move, and there was no surprise or fear on his face. He just stared into space. Standing next to her was Jonathan Reed, known in the area as Cold-Blooded Joe. He was in old, faded clothes, and his left hand was clutching a huge hunting knife. It was he who had inflicted that wound on her. A smirk played on his lips. "I promised I'd come back, and I always keep my promises, Silas." Evelyn felt her heart sink to her feet. She slowly turned her head. Behind Silas, with a knife in his hand, stood her true pursuer. Not 3 bandits, but one. Jonathan Reed. She looked at Silas, who slowly, as if reluctantly, raised his hands. Her shock turned into despair. The cowboy she thought was her savior was not a hero. He was connected to her killer. "Give her to me, Silas," Jonathan hissed. "And we're even." Evelyn screamed. Her voice was full of despair. She realized that her rescue was nothing more than an illusion, and the man she had trusted was part of this cruel game. She lay in the mud, and the hope she had so carefully nurtured crumbled into dust. A new wave of pain washed over her, but this time the pain was not physical, but emotional. "You're wrong, Joe," Silas said. "She's not part of our game." There was no fear or menace in his voice, only a steely resolve. He slowly lowered his hands and pulled out his pistol, but he was too slow. Jonathan pushed him, and Silas fell into the mud, making Evelyn cry out. "She's part of the deal." Jonathan raised the knife, ready to strike. Evelyn closed her eyes, bracing for the inevitable end. But instead of pain, she heard the sound of a gunshot. She opened her eyes and saw that Silas, despite the fall, had managed to fire. The bullet hit Jonathan in the shoulder. He screamed, dropped the knife, and clutched his wound. The knife fell next to Evelyn, and she saw the engraving on it, a crossed-out letter K. Evelyn looked at Silas, who got to his feet and aimed his pistol at the wounded Jonathan. In that moment, hope appeared in her eyes. Perhaps she was not yet lost. Perhaps her savior and the killer were connected by a shared past. But he, Silas, had not become a traitor. He chose her. Now she understood that her life depended on what would happen between these two men. But who were they to each other? And why did Silas save her, apparently breaking some kind of deal with this man? She was wounded, in the mud. Her father was dead, and she was the only witness. And all she could do was wait for this story to continue. A loud gunshot echoed through the main street of Red Creek, drowning out the noise of the crowd. Jonathan Reed fell to his knees, clutching his wounded shoulder with one hand. His gaze, full of animalistic fury, was fixed on Silas, who stood over him with a smoking pistol in his hand. For a moment, everyone froze. The shock of what had happened was so great that no one dared to move. The women gasped. The men instinctively reached for their weapons. In this chaos, only Evelyn saw that their conflict was much deeper than a simple scuffle. On the blade of the knife that lay nearby, the letter K was engraved, a sign that could not belong to a simple bandit. "You broke your oath, Silas," Jonathan rasped, his face contorted with pain and hatred. "Our deal. It was made in blood." Evelyn felt despair grab her by the throat. She understood that Silas hadn't just protected her. He had broken something important that connected him to this man. Her salvation was not an act of heroism, but an act of betrayal. Her father, her life, her tragedy, all of it turned out to be just part of someone else's dark game. Her heart clenched with pain. She again felt defenseless, but this time, not against bandits, but against the ghosts of the past. "Our deal was over when I left, Joe," Silas replied, his voice as cold as steel. He lowered the pistol, but did not put it away. She was not a part of it. Silas Crow, with his silent nature and impenetrable gaze, was an enigma to everyone in Red Creek. His past, like a curtain, was hidden behind him, but in reality, he was one of the branded, a ruthless gang that robbed banks and trains, leaving only death in their wake. Their code was simple: blood for blood, life for life, debt for debt. And Jonathan, whom everyone called Cold-Blooded Joe for his ability to kill without emotion, was their leader. The day Silas decided to leave, he paid his share, his part of the loot, to become free. But, as it turned out, that was not enough. Jonathan, obsessed with revenge and a sense of justice that he understood in his own way, believed that Silas still owed him. He was supposed to complete one last task: to find and kill a man named Arthur Blake, Evelyn's father. Silas left to start a new life. He became an honest man, renouncing violence. He lived peacefully, hoping that the past would stay behind him. He even started helping people. But the past, like a predator, was always breathing down his neck. Hearing Evelyn's fragmented stories, Silas realized that Jonathan was here, and he was hunting not only her, but him as well. The crowd gathered on the street finally found its voice. Sheriff Jacobs, a fat and unhurried man with tired eyes, slowly approached Silas. "What's going on here, Crow?" His hand was already on his holster. "This is not for you to handle, Jacobs," Silas answered sharply, not taking his eyes off Jonathan. "I am the law in this town," the sheriff objected. "And you just shot a man." Jonathan, breathing heavily, slowly got up. "He's trying to cover up his crime, Sheriff," he said. His voice was weak, but his words hit their target. "He killed her father." Joe's words were like a gunshot. Shock swept through the crowd. Evelyn felt the ground give way under her feet. "What? That's not true," Silas saved her, but there was a gruesome conviction in Jonathan's words. "Don't believe him," she cried, but her voice was too weak. "Yes, I killed him," Silas suddenly said. His voice sounded so calm that Evelyn winced. All of her new hope collapsed. "He paid his price. She was the last one. I've finished with my past." Jonathan smirked, his gaze full of triumph. "He killed your father, girl," he said to Evelyn. "And now he's trying to hide it. He's not a hero, he's a killer, just like me." Evelyn felt her heart break. She had trusted him. She was ready to give him her life. And he was the one who had deprived her of her family. Her father died because of him, because of some long-ago deal. She was trapped again, but this time, in a trap of deception and betrayal. Silas looked at her. His eyes were empty, and she saw neither compassion nor guilt in them, only a cold, calculating resolve. In that moment, her despair reached its peak. But then something unexpected happened. Evelyn, trembling and frightened, slowly picked up Jonathan's knife. She held it up to show everyone the engraving. "He's lying," she whispered. "This knife, it belonged to the killer. But I saw there were 3 of them, and I saw that this man," she pointed at Jonathan, "was one of them, and he was trying to kill me." Jonathan turned pale. For the first time, fear appeared in his eyes. Silas quickly assessed the situation. He realized he had a chance now. He used the crowd's shock and anger to buy time. "She told the truth, Sheriff," he said calmly. "Jonathan Reed is a killer, and he's here to finish what he started." The sheriff's gaze darted from Silas to Jonathan, then to Evelyn and the knife. He had to make a decision. Silas knew there was no time. He grabbed Evelyn's hand. "Come with me," he said. "We don't have time." He pulled out a second pistol, aimed it at Jonathan, but did not shoot. He just waved it menacingly. "If you try to stop us, I won't hesitate," he growled at the crowd. "He'll be back, and then he won't spare anyone." Silas and Evelyn ran. They fled from Red Creek, from this town that had become a trap for them. She didn't understand what was happening, but she instinctively felt that she had to trust Silas. She didn't know if he was her father's killer or not, but she knew that he had saved her from Jonathan. She had no choice. Her last hope was in him, in this man who seemed both a hero and a villain at the same time. Now they were together, 2 of them against the whole world, and in that small glimmer of hope, in that hopeless situation, she understood that she had a chance to survive. Fleeing from Red Creek became the beginning of a new, harsher reality for Evelyn and Silas. The dust and heat gave way to rocky canyons and thorny bushes. Every rustle in the thickets made Evelyn flinch. She felt like a wild animal trapped, and Silas, who led them along deserted trails, seemed silent and detached. His face, etched with wrinkles from the sun, was impassive. He hadn't said a word about what had happened, about his ties to Jonathan. But Evelyn couldn't remain silent. "He said you killed my father." Her voice was hoarse. "Is that true?" Silas stopped. He didn't turn around. His gaze was fixed somewhere in the distance. "No," he answered shortly. "But my past. It's directly connected to his death." He finally told her. He was a member of a gang that called themselves the Branded, and the K sign was their personal brand. Jonathan, whom everyone called Joe, was their leader, and Evelyn, her father, Arthur Blake, and Silas himself were second in command. "We found an old Spanish map," Silas continued, his voice sounding like dry sand stilling through his fingers. "It marked a place where the key was hidden. It wasn't a key in the literal sense. It was a riddle that had to be solved to find the gold that an American banker had been transporting 20 years ago. My father was a bank accountant. Jonathan believed that my father knew the secret. He was obsessed with this treasure. He wanted us to do one last job and then go our separate ways. Silas decided to leave before that, leaving the gang. He paid for his freedom, giving up his entire share. But this didn't satisfy Jonathan. He was convinced that Silas had betrayed him, and now, when he found Evelyn and her father, he decided to finish him off. "Your father, Arthur," Silas said slowly. He knew something he wanted to keep for himself, something that wasn't on the map. He found it and escaped. Jonathan came back for him. He wanted to find what your father had taken, and he believed that I knew where it was. Your father was the last link, and you are Joe's last hope." Evelyn felt her previous despair give way to a new, deeper and colder pain. Her father, it turned out, was also a criminal, and his death, as well as her own fate, were the result of his choice. The man she had trusted, Silas, was part of the same gang as the killer. He didn't kill her father, but he was connected to him, to the deal and to the reason for his death. Her world was crumbling. She was not just a victim, she was a pawn in a game she didn't know about. She glanced at Silas, who was slowly walking forward as if nothing had happened. She was ready to hate him, and then she saw him. On top of a rock, like a predatory eagle, sat Jonathan. His arm was bandaged with a dirty rag, but he looked fresh. He pulled out a rifle and slowly took aim. "Silas, now we're even," he shouted, and Evelyn realized they were in a trap. All hope for salvation collapsed. Silas threw himself to the ground, pulling Evelyn with him. A bullet whistled over their heads. This was not just a chase, but a personal vendetta. Jonathan would not give up. Silas dragged Evelyn behind the nearest rock. "We have nowhere to hide," she whispered, and her voice was full of despair. "He won't kill me until he finds out where the key is," Silas said, his eyes glinting. "He's sure I know, but he doesn't just want to kill me. He wants me to suffer. And that's why he'll hunt you, to make me come back. He's using you to find something you don't even know about." "I don't know where the key is," Evelyn cried. Silas looked at her, and something she saw for the first time appeared in his eyes: determination. "Now we're in this game together, but we'll play by our own rules." He pulled out his old compass, which he always carried with him. Its arrow pointed to the northwest, where a harsh desert stretched out. A strange smile appeared on his face. "I know this place. I know where it leads. I know what your father was looking for." It was then, in this moment of deepest despair, that Evelyn realized she had a new hope. Not just to survive, but to learn the whole truth. To find out who her father really was, what he was looking for, and why he died. Her thirst for the truth was now stronger than her fear. She looked at Silas. He was a broken man, but there was a strength in him that she hadn't noticed before. And they ran on, into the uncharted desert, towards their destiny. She was no longer just a victim, and he was no longer just a savior. Now they were allies in the most dangerous game, and at stake was not only their lives, but also the uncovering of the final mystery. Making their way through the rocky labyrinths of the canyons, Evelyn no longer felt like just a victim. Having learned the truth about her father and about Silas, she found a new, steely resolve. She was no longer just a pawn in someone else's game, but a participant who wanted to understand its rules and see it through to the end. Her hope was no longer fragile, but hardened in the fire of despair. Silas, walking ahead, seemed not just a guy, but an ally fighting the ghosts of his own past. He led them along an ancient map that was stored in his memory, a map that Jonathan could neither steal nor read. "Here," Silas said, pointing to a narrow gorge. "Your father left his mark." Inside the gorge, where the shadows were deep and cool, they found an abandoned mine. An old, rusty shovel lay at the entrance. Silas stopped. "He wasn't looking for gold, Evelyn," he said quietly. "He was looking for something else. Something that, in his opinion, was more important than all the gold in the world." At that moment, Evelyn realized they were not alone. A loud voice rang out above them. "You thought I wouldn't find you, Silas." Jonathan stood on the edge of the gorge, his face distorted with rage. He had a rifle in his hands. "I knew you'd come back here. You always return to your past, Crow. And now you've brought the key to me." Silas pushed Evelyn aside and pulled out his pistol. But Jonathan was faster. He shot. The bullet hit Silas in the shoulder, and he fell to the ground, his pistol flying away. Evelyn screamed. The pain of what she saw was unbearable. She watched as her last hope died. "You thought you'd become a different person?" Jonathan laughed. "You'll always be the branded. I'm your past, Silas. And you'll never escape it." He came down to them. Silas lay in the dirt, his wound bleeding. Evelyn, trembling, picked up Silas's pistol. She was scared, but there was no despair in her eyes. She knew she had to act. "You don't know where the key is," Silas said, breathing heavily. "You always only wanted money. You never understood. I understand that you stole what belongs to me." Jonathan growled. "Where is it, Silas? Where's the key? I'll kill her if you don't tell me." Silas shook his head. The key had been with him all along, hidden in his old compass. Jonathan came closer, raising his rifle. "Where?" "I won't ask again." Evelyn, full of anger and determination, aimed the pistol at Jonathan. She couldn't let him kill Silas. Her finger trembled on the trigger. Jonathan turned to her, his eyes full of contempt. "You think you can stop me, girl?" He took a step, preparing to strike her. But Silas was faster. Unexpectedly for Jonathan, he pulled out a second pistol hidden in his boot and fired. The bullet hit Jonathan right in the chest. He collapsed, his eyes filled with shock. He had lost. Not because of a lack of strength, but because he couldn't understand. Silas had changed. He was no longer predictable. He had stopped being the branded. Silas got up, barely suppressing the pain. He was obsessed, he whispered, looking at Jonathan's body. He thought money would make him happy. Silas took a crumpled piece of paper from his compass and handed it to Evelyn. It was not a key to gold. It was a map, drawn in her father's hand, with a single inscription. The key to freedom is the opportunity to start over. I chose you, my dear Evelyn. Her father wasn't looking for wealth. He was looking for a way to escape from the bandits and start a new life with his daughter. This was the key, not gold, but the hope for a new, honest life. Evelyn felt her heart fill with triumph and inspiration. Silas hadn't killed her father, and her father wasn't just a greedy criminal. He was a man who tried to do everything to protect her. And Silas, in the end, did the same. They both fought their pasts. In the end, they reached the nearest town, where Silas went to the sheriff. He told him the whole story, handing over both the map and the pistols. He did not ask for mercy, but for justice. The sheriff listened to him, looked carefully at the wounded man, but did not arrest him. He saw in his eyes not a criminal, but a man who had chosen to atone for his sins by saving an innocent life. Sometimes, Crow, the most valuable treasure is not what you find, but what you get rid of, the sheriff said. Sometimes, to become free, you must first accept your past. A lesson for the audience. The story of Silas, Jonathan, and Evelyn is not just a tale of the Wild West. It's a story about how our past mistakes can haunt us, like ghosts, even if we try to run away. Many of us in life face similar branded people or circumstances that don't let us move forward. Like Silas, we must understand that sometimes the most important battle is the battle with ourselves, with the shadow we cast. The greatest victory is not in accumulating wealth, but in gaining freedom from our inner demons. The true key to freedom is not some object or person, but your own decision, your own determination to live an honest life. And that choice is always yours, no matter how dark your past was.